Okay, welcome to Wild Women, Wise Women, and Witches, and the full moon in May 2024. So, I'm going to run through some things I cover at every full moon, as well as the special energies that we're going to be dealing with the full moon in Sagittarius. So, let's just start first about talking about the full moon. And of course, everything is a cycle. So, we have the new moon and the full moon. So, the new moon is kind of where we plant seeds. And so the full moon is where things blossom. New moon is where we're creating new forms, whereas the full moon is a time for revelation, shining, brilliance, that kind of thing. So with the full moon, it's a great time to enhance or exalt any energy, spiritual and magical, that you might be using for the full moon. And I do have some suggestions for some possible rituals, meditations, that kind of thing that you can do. The full moon is in the afternoon on Thursday, just as a heads up, and it's going to be very well aspected too. This particular moon is going to have a lot of good energy, has a lot of good trine energy, which is that very harmonious type energy. So even Jupiter is well aligned, which is the ruling planet of Sagittarius, is well aligned. So it's really good energies for this full moon. So let's talk about first where we're at, the land that we live in. So, of course, a lot of people, no matter where you live in the States, are probably living on land that was once inhabited or is still inhabited by Native American or indigenous peoples. So that's where you get kind of the old farmer's almanac kind of stuff. So this is the flower moon, and I guess it's not too hard to figure out why this is the flower moon. It's the time when the flowers start really blooming. My irises have been absolutely gorgeous this summer. And it's also might be called the corn moon. So any kind of thing that's growing, blossoming, blooming right now probably had a moon named after it, depending on what Native American tradition that you look at. And so for our purposes, though, flower moon, because if you live in East Tennessee, it's absolutely gorgeous right now. So let's dig in. So let's talk about the energies that we're dealing with. We already know that we're dealing with the full moon, which is abundance, shining, revelation, brilliance. Like I said, it kind of accelerates any work that you're doing, bringing it to fulfillment. And then there is also something to consider with bringing things to fulfillment, is something that actually I learned in the New Thought community, and Matt Orn brings up in his book on the Psychic Witch, which is neuroplasticity. And that is when you make a wish or you do a ritual for something that you wish to happen, you already embrace that it has happened. That's called neuroplasticity. It's kind of like, so yes, thank you for that abundance I'm going to be receiving in 2 days, or something along that line. So that doesn't hurt to do that too, kind of that neuroplasticity where you already see yourself gifted with whatever abundance that you ask for at this moon, or for the resolution of whatever energies that you're working with. So that's something to keep in mind. So let's talk about Sagittarius. So if you have any Sagittarius friends, they tend to be very open-minded. They tend to like to travel. They tend to be very academic-oriented. And these are all areas of our life that are associated with Sagittarius, and more specifically Jupiter. So something I'll also say often with these full moons is that a lot of our correspondences, planetary-wise, in astrology, especially Western astrology, are associated with the Tree of Life of Kabbalah. So on the Tree of Life, Sagittarius, being ruled by Jupiter, is a very specific energy. So let's talk first about what it means to be Jupiterian, what it means to be Sagittarius type energy. Like I said, the first thing that you want to remember is that this is the house of philosophy. So philosophy has a tendency to be quite academic in its understanding too, but it's really about the mechanisms and the relationships that knowledge has. So academics could be any kind of new learning that you might want to do. This is a good time for that, to start a new project that even though we normally think of beginnings with the new moon, you can do these things just as easily at the full moon. So this would be a good time to start a new project that involves you learning more or expanding your horizons. Obviously, it's supposed to be an auspicious time for travel because we're in Jupiter. But more importantly, with that house of philosophy, we really have the energy of our morals and our ethics and our beliefs. So all these very introspective parts of our life come into play when the full moon is in Jupiter. So one thing to remember too, it is a fire. It is Sagittarius is a fire sign. So we've also got an activating energy. So let's look at just some of the elements. So fire, with it being a fire sign, we have a really activating energy. With it being a full moon, we have it being an abundance type energy. And with Sagittarius, we have it being with our personal beliefs. Okay. Something else is family ties. Another thing that Jupiter and the ninth house specifically, because Jupiter and Sagittarius are associated with the ninth house, the house of philosophy, are family ties. This is also an energy associated with like our intergenerational ties. So it's not just the ties that you might have in your immediate family. It would also be your ties to your grandparents or your grandchildren and that continuous line. And so that brings us to kind of my keyword for the sphere on the tree of life that's associated with Jupiter, which is flow. So it's always about the continuity and the connection and the continuous cycle of things. And it's also the process of letting go as well. So a lot of energies that we can be working with the Jupiter moon. So what I would like to do now is give you just a couple of ideas of things that you might want to do as far as the full moon on Thursday. So with it being the house of our morals and our ethics, with it being associated with Jupiter and flow and even water, and it also being associated with fire because of Sagittarius, we've got a real opportunity to harmonize what we believe, to bring the active and the receptive sides of what we believe together, to find that centeredness that lets us just flow right with the current of energy. So if you were wanting to perhaps do a purification ritual, a personal purification ritual on the full moon, this would be a very appropriate ritual for that. And it can be as simple as a sacred shower, or it can be a really sweet, simple anointing yourself with moon water or your own version of holy water out in front of the moon. I might do that cosmic cross on my body, but just some kind of purification ritual where you just let go of all the toxins, let go of all the negativity, put it out, let it flow, let it be released. The one thing about Jupiterian energy is it's not going to be harsh. It's not going to be abrupt. It's going to be this kind of dissolution, this kind of dissolving process that happens. So it's a perfect time for things that you want to dissolve. So another one that I think a ritual that's really easy to do and I think would be really good for that particular process of just dissolution of energies. Take a tissue, or it can be toilet paper, because we don't have to be fancy here. You go with what works for you, and write down on it something along the lines of what you wish to release. This is a great time to release, let the things dissolve out of your life that are keeping you from reaching certain goals that you have, because Sagittarius is very much about goals as well. Our goals, our dreams, our expectations. So write down something that you feel like you need to release. It might even be an expectation that's probably not realistic and you need to release it. Write it down on that piece of paper. Put it in a jar of water that you can put the cap on. And you can even kind of crumble it up and set it out with the moon overnight, right? And that paper, you want really thin, fine paper that you know is going to dissolve. And it won't dissolve completely overnight. You can eventually, I like to pour my offerings like that around my trees in the yard. So that's something that I do with stuff like that. But, sincerely write that down, put your emotion into it, spend some time with that thing that you wish to release, or that idea or that expectation that you wish to dissolve, and just spend some time putting that energy into what you're writing and into that little piece of paper. Put it in the water, seal it, put it overnight. And then, like I said, when it dissolves, so does your expectation, or so does the thing that you wish to release, that you wish to dissolve. And that's probably the simplest of rituals that you can do for this Jupiter full moon. And so with that being said, you got quite a few things to work with. So just use all these nice little ingredients for our full moon to come up with your own ritual. I'm always excited for people if they wish to share their rituals too on the Wild Women, Wise Women, and Witches group. And so let's get to the reading. So I'm sure many of you have probably read this book, correct? Women Who Run with Wolves, Clarissa Pinkola Estes, PhD, which, by the way, I have some books by her in my Knoxville Rose on Ed Daily bookstore. So what I'm reading from, the chapter that I'm reading from today is called The Joyous Body, The Wild Flesh. And, I've been recently read from Daniel Dusky's, what is it, The Holy Wild? Yeah, The Holy Wild. Very similar type energy that Estes has in her books, only she's really dealing a lot more with folklore. So let me just read this. It's a little bit long. I'm going to be skipping just a few chapters, but this is chapter 7. I have been taken with the way wolves hit their bodies together when they run and play. The old wolves in their way, the young ones in theirs, the skinny ones, the fat ones, the long-legged, the lop-tailed, the floppy-eared, the ones whose broken limbs healed crookedly. They all have their own body configuration and strength, their own beauty. They live and play according to what and who and how they are. They do not try to be what they are not. Up in the Northlands, I watched one old wolf with 3 legs. She was the only one who could fit through a crevice where blueberries were breaching. I once saw a gray wolf crouch and leap in such a flash, it left the image of a silver arc in the air for a second afterward. I also remember a delicate one, a new mother, still fulsome in the belly, picking her way through the pool moss with the grace of a dancer. Yet, despite their beauty and ability to stay strong, wolves are sometimes talked about in this way. Ah, you are too hungry. Your teeth are too sharp. Your appetite's too interested. Like wolves, women are sometimes discussed as though only a certain temperament, only a certain restrained appetite is acceptable. And too often added to that is an attribution of moral goodness or badness according to whether a woman's size, height, gait, and shape conform to a singular or exclusionary ideal. When women are relegated to moods, mannerisms, and contours that conform to a single ideal of beauty and behavior, they are captured in both body and soul and are no longer free. In systems of bodywork such as Feldenkrais and Ayurveda and others, the body is understood variously as having 6 senses, not 5. The body uses its skin and deeper fascia and flesh to record all that goes on around it. Like the Rosetta Stone, for those who know how to read it, the body is a living record of life given, life taken, life hoped for, life healed. It is valued for its articulate ability to register immediate reaction, to feel profoundly, and to sense ahead. The body is a multilingual being. It speaks through its color and its temperature, the flush of recognition, the glow of love, the ash of pain, the heat of arousal, the coldness of non-conviction. It speaks through its constant tiny dance, sometimes swaying, sometimes a jitter, sometimes trembling. It speaks through the leaping of the heart, the falling of the spirit, the pit at the center, and rising hope. The body remembers, the bones remember, the joints remember, even the little fingers remember. Memory is lodged in pictures and feelings in the cells themselves. Like a sponge filled with water, anywhere the flesh is pressed, wrung, even touched lightly, a memory may flow out in a stream. To confine the beauty and value of the body to anything less than this magnificence is to force the body to live without its rightful spirit, its rightful form, its right to exaltation. To be thought ugly or unacceptable because one's beauty is outside the current fashion is deeply wounding to the natural joy that belongs to the wild nature. Women have good reason to refute psychological and physical standards that are injurious to spirit and which sever the relationship with the wild soul. It is clear that the instinctive nature of women values body and spirit far more for their ability to be vital, responsive, and enduring than by any measure of appearance. This is not to dismiss who or what is considered beautiful by any segment of culture, but to draw a larger circle that embraces all forms of beauty, form, and function. So, a lot of what we talk about in Wild Women, Wise Women, and Witches, I almost said wolves, is really working on that body image. I think if we have one great patriarchal wound, it is the standard of beauty that women have been held to. And it does get easier. I'm almost 60. I'm like, now, I love me. I think I'm beautiful, even though now I don't really care what the rest of the world thinks. And that's the freedom, though, that we're talking about. You're not held to any unreasonable standard. So perhaps one of the things that you could write on that little tissue that you dissolve in the water overnight is the expectation that people put on you about what beauty is, and releasing that and letting that go. And that would be an ideal way to work with the full moon in Sagittarius, and to base it on what you know to be moral and ethical, and most of all, natural. And that last part, being natural, is how we honor the holy wild. So I want to thank you for joining us for the full moon on this May 2024. I hope this gets out in time for some of you to plan what you would like to do for the full moon on Thursday. And I will be back again in June. I will be doing another hosting of the Wild Women, Wise Women, and Witches Full Moon Social, and providing information again along the same lines of how you too can take advantage of the current energies of the full moon, whether you want to do it for spiritual reasons or just magical reasons or even more mundane reasons. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you can join us next month for the full moon. If you're interested in joining Wild Women, Wise Women, and Witches, the private group on Facebook, please feel free to contact me. You can reach me at WildWomenWiseWomenAndWitches@gmail.com, all one word. Have a beautiful and blessed full moon.